cap compliant. I'm going to show you how the Canucks can be cap compliant. Now, the big if here is if Tanner Pearson doesn't make the team, either gets cut, gets traded, or tries to come back with his hand and can't. Let's say, I think Pullman's for sure going to be on LTIR, unfortunately. But let's say Pearson is on LTIR to start the season. Let's say he is. The way I have this roster, even we're not over the cap. We have our 23 players. The salary cap is 83.5, but I got us at 82.2, which means I have 1.3 here in cap space. So this is, don't worry so much about who's playing with who, but think about the guys that I have on my roster. So down the middle, I do have Petey, Miller, Suter, and Bluger, but let's do it this way. So I want to see Mikheyev back with that top line. I know Beauvillier got time with that line after he came here from the Islanders, but in my eyes, I'm going Pettersson with Kuzmenko and Mikheyev. There's my top line. Then for my second line, I have JT Miller with Besser, because I don't think Besser's a third line player. And then one of Beauvillier or Garland. From a left shot, right shot, left side, right side. I put Beauvillier in there right now. So then now my third line is Suter between Garland and Niels Höglander, who I think is ready for a big step. Oh, by the way, Suter's contract is 2 years, $1.6 million. So it's not the 1 year that Cole and Bluger got, but it's not the 3 years that Carson Soucy got. And then on my fourth line, I have Bluger between Podkolzin and Dakota Joshua. We know how much Rick Tocchet loves Dakota Joshua. And then we know how much also Rick Tocchet loves DiGiuseppe. So DiGiuseppe and Oman are my extra forwards. You could probably put Studnicka or Dries in here instead of Oman as well. But I just think Niels Oman might be on the outside looking in. So I'm going with the presumption that they carry 14 forwards, 2 extra forwards, and only 1 extra D. It could go 1 forward, 2 extra D, and I'll tell you why that might make sense, or at least how it doesn't make a sense, difference numbers-wise. Hughes and Cole, Soucy and Hronik, Hirose or Wolanin, one of the two with Myers if he doesn't get traded, and then Demko and one of Martin or Seelovs. It doesn't matter who for this purposes. You add that all up, and like I said, I still have $1.3 million of cap space. Now, I tweeted about this. What's very interesting is if you're not on the first or second line, there's about 8 or 10 guys that are interchangeable from a standpoint of salary wise. So it doesn't skew our salary cap projections. I counted 8 to 10 guys that could possibly be on the Canucks roster or extra, healthy scratches. And they all make between 750,000 and 950,000. So let's count these. Dakota Joshua at 825, Vasily Podkolzin at 925, DiGiuseppe at 775, Niels Oman at 884. Then we have Hirose at 787, Wolanin at 775, Spencer Martin at 762. So that's already 7 guys that I have in my projected roster who make less than $1 million. But let's say that you think that, for instance, Sheldon Dries makes this team. He only makes 762. You might say Studnicka makes the team. He was on the team for a bit last year. That's number 9. He makes 762. You may even say that Ratu gets a chance. I doubt it though this year. He's making 836. You might say Jack Rathbone. You might say Matt Irwin. Those guys make under 900 grand. You might say Noah Juleson or Breezeball 775. And you might say even Arthur Seelovs beats out Spencer Martin. So I just showed you guys 15 guys. I just showed you, thanks Kempner, I appreciate that. I just showed you 15 guys that could see time in the Canucks lineup this season because of winning training camp battles or depth because of injuries. I just showed you 15 guys who make $1 million or less. So that's why I really like what Rutherford and Alvin have done with their salaries. Sure, maybe the wingers are a bit overpriced and Myers you want to get rid of, but that wasn't this contract. That wasn't this regime. So obviously you pay your big guys a lot of money in PD. We know he needs a contract in Miller, in Hughes. But that's the one thing. The bottom of our lineup, our fourth line guys, and then some of our depth defensemen all make less than $1 million. So that's why we can make this salary cap fit. Now, for anyone who wants to play around, you just go to Cap Friendly and you go to Interactive and you go to Armchair GM and you can do exactly what I'm doing right now. Okay. If you add Tanner Pearson into this, though, let's say Tanner Pearson comes back to camp healthy and he beats out Podkolzin, for instance. So we got to move Podkolzin off of the roster now. We'll just put him in taxi squad for now. It doesn't matter. So by making that one change, by putting Pearson in for any of our $1 million guys, now look, cap's 83.5. Our cap hit is 84.5. So now we are basically over the cap by $1 million. So you can see that that's the tricky part, is if Tanner Pearson forces himself on this team, you cannot have a full roster. Because I remember I filled it out with all these guys that make less than $1 million. If Pearson makes the team out of camp, then what I think has to happen is you got to trade Myers and it's $6 million, or you got to trade one of Garland or Beauvillier or even Besser, which I don't think you can do. So you got to trade basically someone if Tanner Pearson makes this team. So do you worry about that yet? Or do you kind of worry about to see, maybe you just worry about it at training camp to see how his hand does? And if he makes the team, you think if he's healthy that he will make the team. So I think this is all to say there's still one more move that the Canucks have to make. Whether that's trading Tyler Myers, or whether that's trading one of the wingers that they've been trying to trade for the past half of a year. But I wanted to show you that visual because now when you actually move guys around, you can actually see the overall effect it has on the salary cap. So anyone saying that Canucks are not cap compliant, anyone saying that, it's because they are factoring in Tanner Pearson into the roster right now. And that's not a bad take. In fact, if Pearson's healthy, you got to think he's going to make the team over someone like a Di Giuseppe, an Amon, a Podkolzin, or a Bovenlander. You really do. So, but if he starts on LTIR, you can see how, you can see how the Canucks can be cap compliant. Last thing, and some of you are talking about it already. I've been kind of optimistic about this team. I've been saying at least, hopefully, 4th in the division or even 5th, and get one of the 2 wildcard spots, depending on the strength of the Central. Regardless, again, of who's playing with who, we have 6 guys that didn't play last year that are new. Pius Suter, Teddy Bluger, Carson Soucy, Ian Cole, and I'm saying Philip Hronek because, I lied, there's only 5. Philip Hronek, who only played 4 games last year. So if you look at D, we basically brought in Soucy, Cole, and Hronek to replace OEL on the left, Luke Shen, Riley Stillman, and Kyle Burrows. And it was either Stillman and Burrows. So let's just say, and then Shen got traded. So let's just say we brought in Cole, Soucy, and Hronek to replace OEL, Shen, and Stillman. I take that. For sure. Up front, we've basically brought in, remember, you can't count Horvat because Horvat was traded mid-season because we're not going to talk about Beauvillier. So up front, we've basically brought in Suter and Bluger to replace Sheldon Dries. Yes, Dries and Amon. Thank you, Kenny, and thank you, Ellen. So I'm taking Suter and Bluger over Dries and Amon. So basically, we have Suter, Bluger, Soucy, Cole, and Hronek in for OEL, Shen, Stillman, Dries, and Amon. My friends, I am taking that. Yes, you missed Luke Shen, as the elder just mentioned, but overall, I am taking that. And all 5 of those guys, here's the key, you guys. All 5 of those guys are penalty killers. Suter, Bluger, Soucy, Cole, Hronek. They can all kill penalties. What was the biggest Achilles heel? No pun. No, it's not even a pun. No reference intended. The biggest Achilles heel of our team last year was the penalty kill. So that's why, you guys, this is why, you see it on the screen, this is why I'm so optimistic about the season. Yes, Kenny, you're right. Mikheyev was shut down in February or January, February, and he wasn't even his full self. And maybe, actually, Kenny, good point. I think that's kind of the guy I had in my head who was like the sixth guy, even though we had Mikheyev last year. I don't think we saw the full Mikheyev. So if I'm saying that 6 of the skaters are new, work with me on the Mikheyev, that's 1/3 of our roster. 1/3 of our roster on opening night is likely going to be new players, and I'm absolutely fine with it.